All right. I want to welcome everybody this afternoon, and for our BC participants, good morning. My name is Trina Carey, and I am the Vice President of Sales here at Sienna. I have been in the senior living industry for over 12 years and have worked in our glorious country, coast to coast, in the senior living industry, helping and working with our seniors and their families. And today it is my honor to moderate our session. And it is my first time moderating, so please be gentle with me. But we do have an expert panelist who will help me along as well. So I'm very excited to introduce you to our speaker, Gay Douglas. Gay has been a senior move manager since 2008, when she and a friend founded the first senior move management business in the Niagara region. Shortly after, she traveled to Boston for training to become a certified relocation and transition specialist. Most of Gay's career has been spent in non-for-profit management and adult education. However, as an incessantly curious person and natural-born entrepreneur, she saw opportunities in the exciting new industry of senior move management. In 2017, Gay founded her second senior move management company called Trustworthy Supportive Moving Services, this time as a family affair, with her grown son and daughter as participants. All three have a background in social work, and this unique perspective and sensitivity to client needs enhances their service offerings. I met Gay earlier this year, and I'm absolutely thrilled not only to have had the opportunity to present you with her knowledge and on move management, but also on her personal experiences. For this webinar, I encourage you to type your questions in the chat box at the bottom, and we will start at the top and get through as many as possible at the end of Gay's presentation. I will now turn it over to Gay to present. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Trina, for the nice introduction. And thank you out there. I wish I could see you all, but I cannot. But I did want to thank you for joining us this afternoon. I hope you find this helpful. I hope you find it entertaining, and I hope that we can answer a number of questions you may have. The senior move industry is a very new one, only about 20 years old. So I'm sure that you will have some questions about how a senior move manager may be a valuable asset and partner in the move you may have planned. So often I call this presentation Our Stuff and Why We Love It, and why we can't let it go, because that's really the heart of what this presentation is going to be about today, about that overwhelming feeling that we have when we look at all the stuff we have and the challenges we may have in parting with it, because it's an emotional response we have to those items. There's history, there's meaning, there's love in the items that we've held on to for so long. So I'm going to be talking about that today. I'm also going to be speaking not only as a senior move manager, but as a client, because most recently I moved, and my move management team were an integral part of getting us to our new home. So I had the opportunity to really feel and better empathize with what our clients go through. And I would hear myself saying things and going, oh my goodness, I would say to our staff, I sound just like a client. So that's the sort of foundation of today's presentation. And it will really help me if I understand who is out there. So you have some options before you. There will be a poll that drops down, and we ask you to click on the answer that sounds most like you. If you're joining us today because you're thinking of moving to a residence, you can click there. Or a family member may be considering moving, you can click there. You're not moving, but you might want to declutter your place. You can click on that one. And finally, you might be just here because you're curious. So please click on that. We'll give you a couple of minutes, or a few seconds anyway, to complete the poll, and then we'll share the results. I also want to give a shout out to Natasha. Nobody can see Natasha, but she is the magical person who is sitting in the background, just like behind the Wizard of Oz, and pulling all the switches and all the buttons and making the magic happen today. So let's see what we've learned. Isn't this interesting? So most people who are joining us really want to know more about decluttering. Well, that's really helpful. And so please do enter your decluttering questions into the chat, because there may not be a lot of decluttering answers for you in this presentation. So let's carry on. So here we go. Does this sound like you? Does this ever happen to you? And if most of you would like to be doing some decluttering, this is definitely you. Do you ever take out a broken item and go, I know this pen doesn't work, but instead of throwing it away, you put it back in the drawer? Do you find yourself looking for things and going through things that don't matter anymore to find the things that really matter? Are there jobs or parts of your house that you simply avoid because they bring up this uncomfortable feeling of, I really need to do this? And you know you need to do something, but you're not sure where to start. Well, this should have been a poll, but it isn't a poll. But I would ask you to think about that, because, drum roll, Natasha, next slide, you're absolutely normal. That is how many of us, especially after living in a place for 10, 15, 20, 40 years, you end up with a variety of items, some that matter and some that don't. And I love this this cartoon, and I think you can probably read it. You're not disorganized. You know exactly where stuff is. The newer stuff's on top and the older stuff's on the bottom. That's exactly what we go through when we go to someone's home. I often equate it with an archaeological dig, is that we are really uncovering the history of this person. We're not just sharing the move with them, we're sharing their life and their life stories and the stuff that has made up their lives. So we start at the most recent, and then sure enough, underneath, we found it. Well, that's not a problem if you want to live that way, but it really becomes an issue when you decide to move. You have no options, you have a deadline, and you need to leave the house. You cannot pack everything to move with you. So a little bit about the move management industry. There are more than 1,000 move managers in North America, some that are accredited, some are not, some that do other things like real estate, consignment, and other kinds of related careers. But what we do is we help people downsize. We help them with their stuff. We will ship things that they need shipped to family. We work in partnership with real estate, with the family, with the client, and with the residents to which they are going. And critically, we get most of our referrals from residents who are saying, Mrs. Smith really needs to move in, but she has so much stuff. She has no family. Can you help her? So moving day is a piece of cake if you have a move manager who can help you up until moving day, because it's all about the stuff. And here's another great little hub picture. And I think this really explains it well, that the move manager becomes the center of the hub, coordinating all of the details around the move or the decluttering that may be going on for the client. If things need to be cleaned out, if things need to be shipped to family, if the realtor has some very specific ideas about how the house should be staged, we can help. So this slide really does sum it up. In my company, Trustworthy Supportive Moving Services, I am that central hub that brings in the resources, that identifies opportunities and coordinates the entire process. This is an interesting slide. We thought it was an error, but I reread it and I'm glad we kept it in. On January 1st, 2010, and for 20 years after that, 1,000 Canadians turn 65 every day. So in another 10 years, that 20-year period will be over. This is the baby boomer age. All of those babies that were born in the late 40s, early 50s, we are achieving senior citizenhood. And as a result, it has really opened up the need for the move management industry. Now to the heart of our presentation is some fantastic and I think fascinating information from a project that was done in 2013 at the University of Kansas. We always talked about how hard it was for older adults to part with things and how challenging it was to have too many things in your house. but we really didn't have the good sound scientific research for it. We do now through this project. So you can see they interviewed 1,300 people who were going through or had recently gone through a move process. And here are the things they wanted to learn. The sociologists that were studying them. Do people hang on to more stuff than they can handle? If they keep hanging on to that stuff, what are the impacts on their mental and physical health? And why is it so hard for people to part with their stuff? So I'm going to answer some of those questions for you today, thanks to the University of Kansas. So here is another poll. I'm going to share with you what the results of their research were, but today, or right now, rather for this slide, we're going to ask you to answer the question. When you think about the stuff that you have in your house right now, and keep in mind, house includes basement, garage, and outbuildings, do you have too much, not enough, or just enough? And it will be very interesting to see the results of this poll. Drum roll. Nobody said not enough. Wow. And I'm wondering, of the just enough are possibly people who have already done one downsize, perhaps already moved from a home to a condo or an apartment. That typically is what I see. Now, that's fascinating. Thank you for being so honest and forthright. This is what the researchers found when they interviewed the 1,300 people through the Household Moves project. This is exactly what they found. All kind of similar numbers to the ones we just had, that absolutely 60% of the people who were interviewed said, I have too much. And the ones that said they had just enough had already done at least one downsize. So why? Why do we have so much stuff? And why is it so hard to part with? Because everything has an intrinsic value to us. And the longer that we hang on to something, the more that we invest time and effort and care into something, the more we become attached to it. That's why babies are born as sweet little helpless infants and not teenagers. Because we are drawn to care for them. And through caring for them, we build a bond with them. If we had teenagers born that way, I'm not sure if we would have the chance to care for them to the degree we might want to. They'd be pushing us out of the way. So when someone is thinking about moving and we take a look at a plant, and a plant may have been in that family for 10 or 15 years, or as one of the clients we had said to us, that plant came to me when my husband passed away 2 years ago as a gift from a dear friend. I can't let that go. So possessions that represent a lifetime of memories. This is sad news for those of you who think your stuff may have value. It has very little market value. In today's market, younger people are buying furniture and stuff for new homes. And I'm saying younger being people under 50 primarily, with young families or no kids at all. They don't want your stuff. And if you'll ask your kids, try that sometime. Ask your kids if they want your stuff. Chances are they'd rather go to a big box store and buy something that will last for a couple of years. So number of reasons why, really specific reasons why we don't let stuff go. We think it's going to become more valuable, or it does become valuable because of the care. It may be useful. We think stuff may have value, like old coins or old silverware or money. They bring us pleasure, right? Love letter. Or I just went through a box. I should grab it. I can show it to you. My mother's recipes. I can't let them go. They're in her handwriting. They're very, very personal to me. I remember her preparing those foods, sitting in the kitchen watching her cook. Sometimes we hold on to things because they either represent our former self, or they could be our future self. And we often hope that those jeans that fit in 1983 will still fit us in 2021. So we hold on to that. So that's typically what happens. I remember a client we moved who had all these bowling trophies rather. He had been a championship bowler. Now, he hadn't bowled in 10 or 15 years. He had some mobility issues, but one of the most important things that we had to promise him when we were overseeing his move and planning his move was that those trophies would end up in his new home in a place of honor. So we keep things to keep ties with people, because if any family member has given you something, you have a responsibility to hold on to that, or we believe someone can use it. And one of the major reasons is with bigger homes are so much bigger. They became so much bigger in the 70s and 80s and 90s than they were in the 50s, that with more space, we will fill it up. And with storage facilities so readily available, many of our clients will say, oh, I can't bear to even go through that stuff. Let's just stick it in storage. And I can tell you that sometimes that is thousands and thousands of dollars over years. And they would be better off if they just bit the bullet and looked at that stuff and made some hard decisions now. So here's my sort of circle from how stuff accumulates. We're going to start at the top. So people buy stuff that they think they need, and think is my word. They think they need it, but then maybe they didn't. But at the time, maybe it was something that they really thought they needed and wanted. Then they put that stuff away. They don't think about that stuff because it's away and they don't see it every day or every hour of every day. Then they forget that they have it. So they go out and they buy more stuff. And that is really typically, we will see in that archaeological work that we do, that when they were looking for a particular item, there might be 3 or 4 samples of it throughout the archaeological dig over the years. Very typical. So more than anything, what we own is our material biography. It is what stands for us. It's the stuff that really tells our life story. And I'm going to show you or talk to you about 2 very specific examples here. My very first client back 14 years ago, our very first client in my first business, she held on to all of the toys of her son. Now, he was now in his 40s. He was a very successful surgeon. He lived in another country, but it was so critical to her that she held on to every toy because of the memories. We often deal also with a lot of people who have lost a long-term spouse, and we find that they really need to hang on to items that belonged to their late spouse, because it gives them a sense of connection. Some more questions that came up in the household moves survey, and I don't think we're asking you this question, but we're going to ask you this question a little later on. So when they asked the 1,300 people as part of the household moves research, how reluctant, when you think about all the stuff you have in your house, and let's say you were even considering moving, how reluctant does that stuff make you feel? And they were asked, does it make me at all reluctant? Somewhat reluctant or very reluctant. Can we see what the results were on the next slide? Once again, probably no surprises here. There is a direct correlation between how much stuff you have, how overwhelming it may be, and how reluctant it will make you to move. I don't think that's rocket science, but it's pretty obvious, and now we have the research to back it up. Now, I love this. It's a very long sentence, and I'm going to read it aloud because I think it helps if I give it some tone and gravity. This was the final finding of the Household Moves project team that really stuck with me. And here's what they found. The reluctance to move has physical and mental consequences on people. The sheer volume of objects in a typical household, 1. The enormous physical and cognitive effort involved in sorting out what's essential and what is not. That's 2. And the psychological toll of parting with treasured possessions. Those 3 things can lead to a kind of paralysis that keeps seniors in place, even when that place may not be the best place to be. And we have definitely worked with clients who were not eating well, who were having little social contact, who were feeling isolated or ill and not taking very good care of themselves, and they really needed to make that move to a residence. Another great thing that came out of the household moves research is this list. They were able to say which items in particular are harder to part with. So I won't read this aloud. I'll let you look at it and see if you agree, if these are the toughest things to part with. Some are kind of obvious, you know, with books, you have an emotional and a sensory relationship with those books, wonderful memories, symbols of other life stages, souvenirs, and boy, do we see a lot of National Geographic and old Life magazines that people think have value. Or once again, you can open it up and there was the landing on the moon. We see a lot of incredibly what may look historical, but really doesn't have value in the outside market, which is unfortunate. So another little word just before we go to the next slide about sofa beds, pianos, and dining room suites. They are the hardest to sell and the hardest to move. More about that sometime in the future. Be aware, they're really sticky, really, really sticky. Now, how about families and stuff? First of all, chances are your family does not want the items in particular that you may hold valuable. And they may not even know how meaningful they are to you or the history that goes with them. But if you do give something to a child and a grown child to hold on to for you, they can pretty much expect you're going to go back and check on them to make sure that they are taking good care of that item. That's a typical thing that we do. So here's some great questions to ask if you're ready to downsize, or even if you're just decluttering, you would just like to clear some of the space in your space. First of all, the first question will obviously relate to only those moving, but if you're not using something, who might? I cannot tell you how much furniture has left the homes of the clients that we serve and gone to the Niagara Furniture Bank. And the Niagara Furniture Bank helps newcomers and people living on social assistance to have decent, sound furniture in their homes. It has made such a difference to so many families. So if you're not using it, you know that one man's trash is another man's treasure, and someone will utilize it. So donate, donate, donate. Does it still work? If it doesn't work, say goodbye to it. When was the last time you actually used it? I would say if it's been over 5 or 10 years, you probably don't need it. And with clothing, if you haven't worn it in a year, let it go. And I know that's tough. I just got rid of 14 garbage bags worth of clothes and shoes when I moved. And it was a little difficult to see it go, but it felt so much better when I saw the truck pull away. So who will buy it? And there's some things that are worth selling. That's another webinar for the future, talking about sales and who will take it away. If you can get anyone to take something away from your home, it will save you the cost of having to pay to have it removed. Here we go. If it's garbage, let it go. If it's to be donated, someone will appreciate it. And really get real about the real market value of your stuff. I would say, unless they're willing to come and pick it up, and just about any price, we'll see something disappear. And that's to your benefit, especially if you're moving and you have a deadline. And if you're moving from a 4,000 square foot house into 800 square feet, you're going to have to say goodbye to some things. So let people take it away. And one more little note, I was working with a client this week, and as I said to him, First thing is let family take things away. It's so important that before people start to give things away or throw them away, that family has a chance to come in and see the stuff, because there could be a simple item that your niece or nephew remembers based on an experience they had with grandma that you are unaware of, and the value that might have to them. Let them take it away. Really important that we recognize that getting older is a journey of grief. Sometimes we lose family members, we lose our mobility, some people lose sight or vision, we're losing friends. For some people, the loss of not working anymore is also a painful process. But we tend, when we're dealing with our stuff, we tend to move it twice. We don't want it totally out of our control, but we'll first move it, for example, from a linen closet to the garage, or a linen closet to a garbage bag, because I'm going to donate it next time I go to town. So we feel a little better if we can make that grieving process a two-step process. And we need to just face facts that downsizing and decluttering is tough, physically, cognitively, and emotionally. And that sometimes it's embarrassing for people to come into your home and see the level of clutter you may have. But an experienced move manager will be very used to that situation, and they will be able to put your mind at ease that this is normal. This is what happens when you live a life in one place for a long time. So we're ending at really quickly, which is great, which will allow lots of time for questions. This is one of my last slides. Just wanted to say that what I have seen with the clients that we have helped through the moving process, and I'm talking about all the preparation, the organizing, the categorizing, the selling, the donating, the bringing in cleaners to get the house ready, working with the realtor, also unpacking them at the other end, getting them settled into their new home, getting them oriented in their new residence, hanging the pictures on the wall, making the bed, doing everything so that they can walk in and have a grand reveal at the end of the day. And what I've seen is that for many of our clients, they were living sort of a half-life in isolation with their away from family and normal social activities that they used to enjoy. And that sometimes that move to a smaller domicile or a retirement residence, particularly because of the features and the amenities that they provide, like the beautiful dining, like the lovely laundry services and cleaning services and social and recreational and events that are going on. I have seen some of our clients who I may have considered frail or lonely or sad, and then I see them 6 months later and they're going to the gym regularly and not having to cook anymore and enjoying life, and they look 10 years younger. And that's a really typical thing, that they discover a new possible self from the person they used to be under all that stuff. So here we are, the last slide. Once again, reminder, if you have any specific questions, I'd love to answer them. We have lots of time. But I'd like to ask you, I know it's been a brief little webinar, half an hour, and just some little bit of related information. But now that you know a little more about how normal it is for us to feel attached to our stuff, are you more ready to part with the things that you love? Or are you less ready to part with the things that you love? So please take a moment to click on the poll and we'll see what the results are. What I love about these polls is they're totally anonymous. We don't know who you are. And it'll just give us a sense of our audience response to today. What we didn't say is, are you still at the same place? But we'll see if we are able to break this up. More ready. Well, I consider that a success. I think that's wonderful. You're now ready to move ahead. So that's Awesome. So maybe some of the questions will lead us to some of the next obvious steps. If you are ready to move ahead, what are your next steps? And let's see if anyone's asking a question like that. If not, I can tell you how to proceed. So thank you once again for the great opportunity. I know I had like 24 slides. I didn't think I was going to get through them so quickly, but I'm glad that you're here, and thank you for your attention.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gay. I'm telling you, I'm writing notes furiously because I think it's time for me to start the first burial, I think is what I need to do with some of my stuff. So just a reminder to our participants, I want to just make sure if you have any questions, please type them in the chat box. And basically, I am going to start going through them, and I will read those out to Gay. Great. And then we will get through as many as possible. So the first question I've got here, Gay, is how long will it take for me to downsize and declutter my house?
Well, the answer to that is it depends. And we have never in the 13, 14 years I've been involved in the industry, never had one client that was like another. So I think what's important for people to understand is a really customized approach to every client. Everyone will have a different level of comfort with the process. Some of our clients will have family members that are part of the process, and we work shoulder to shoulder with them. That will obviously reduce the time and the cost. Some people have a really tight deadline. They have to be out of the house in 2 weeks. Others have the luxury of 3 months. Some people have a high level of clutter, almost to a hoarding situation. Other people, it's really a matter of picking 10 items that are going to move in their new residence, and everything else is going to family. So it depends. There's no hard answer, but a qualified move management should be able to give you an estimate in the home and give you options and things to consider at no obligation. That's the sort of ideal, is they're going to come in, take a look, give you an estimate about the services not only they can provide, but which they can bring in to coordinate anything else you may need done.
Awesome. Thank you, Gay. And just I think a follow-up is, how do I find a move manager? How do I find you?
Great idea. Well, you're obviously, you've got technology whizzes out there that joined us for this session today. I would Google Senior Move Manager and your community. So Senior Move Manager, Ottawa, Senior Move Manager. So the term Senior Move Manager, I better say that, clarify that for a moment too. We move all ages of people. We tend to work more with older adults who require the help of a Senior Move Manager, but the industry is Senior Move Manager. Another way to find one is look at your Chamber of Commerce and see if you have any that are listed in your local Chambers of Commerce. Probably the best source from my thinking is there is a national association of senior move managers. It's based in the States, but there are members from across the States, Canada, and Europe and Australia now. Wow. Over 1,000 members. So you can go on to their website and you can search by city. First, search by country, province, and city. So I'm going to give you that address. And maybe if I could do it, I would type it into the chat, but maybe Natasha with all of her magic could do this. It's very simple. It's N as in national, A as in association, S as in senior, S again as in specialized, and M.org. So NASM, NASMM, National Association Senior Move Managers.org, O-R-G. NASM.org. Ah, Natasha did it. It's in the chat.
Got it.
Magic. So check it out. Right on their main page, it says find a senior move manager. You can click there and locate one that is at, and that's probably critical. I tell you this. Those are only the senior move managers that have chosen to join the association, that have specialized training, specialized screening around safety, health, and ethics. And we are
Awesome.
always upgrading and always learning from each other at regular conferences and professional development.
Excellent. Okay, another question from the chat, Gay, and I think this is, here's the question. I just don't know what to do with my stuff. Where do I start?
Yeah, that's a big question. It's
a big one.
I would say that when people, by the time people have called us in to give them a hand, they've recognized they're overwhelmed and they don't know where to begin. I would say if you're not sure where to begin, take the time to contact a move manager in your community who can come in, give you that estimate, and share some resources with you. They're going to give you some leads. They're going to talk about where they could start. You can't do it alone. We are too close. We are too in love with our stuff to be able to be objective. One of the best things about an outside source is they'll come in, they will give you some honest opinion about the value of the items that you have and some ways of dealing with it. Don't try and do it alone.
Awesome. Thanks, Gay. Okay, this one's a pretty charged one as well. I hope you're ready for this question. Any suggestions for getting my spouse on side to work on decluttering?
Well, that's a good one for me because I just moved with my spouse. And while I did a dynamite job of downsizing for my much smaller home, he didn't do so well. He didn't want our help for this particular move. So now he's dealing with the fallout, which is too much stuff and not enough room. I can also tell you with the clients that we work with that very often one of the spouses is really excited about the move and the other one typically isn't. So that's a very common thing that we come across. What can you do to get them on side? Keep looking at the positivity. Maybe that's the best advice I can give because we do this with our clients. Often Mrs. Smith, let's say we're working with Mrs. Smith or Mr. Smith in their home as they're moving at the end of September right now. And we are constantly reinforcing the positivity of moving. Won't it be nice when you get to the residence? You won't have to cook anymore. Won't it be nice that you won't have to do that anymore? And I'll be very, very personal here about my husband. What I found he started to say was, hey, I won't have to cut all this grass anymore. Oh, I won't have to wake up at 3 a.m. and worry about the old pump, the well pump breaking down. We were in a rural property, so we had an old well, we had a septic system. I kept reinforcing with him how life was going to be better for him and I once we didn't have those worries.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Is there a politically correct way to ask the person to consider decluttering?
Oh, wow. Oh, that's a good one. Because obviously we don't go in and make those suggestions to people. They call us because they're ready. Boy, maybe you have some wisdom to share. I would say, first of all, being very respectful, asking them, are you happy with the way things are here? Are you able to move around? Would you be able to find things? Could I help you? Or could we get some help in making that easier for you? But once again, there's a fine line between serious cluttering and hoarding.
Yeah.
And there are psychological and emotional components that people may not be prepared to deal with. So be very sensitive, and I get it. I guess we're constantly saying, even when we tackle a project at a time, for example, even a linen closet. So if you're talking about helping a friend, and I'm assuming that you're talking about a friend or a family member that you would like to have some influence on around cluttering or decluttering rather. We don't need to encourage people to clutter. We need to encourage them to declutter. So I would say, listen, I noticed last time I was here, I went in the closet there to get that washcloth. And why don't we spend, and when I come back, you go make a cup of tea. Why don't we sit here and we're going to go through the closet? People are always amazed at how quickly things declutter. that in 20 minutes, you can likely get through that closet and make 3 piles or have 3 boxes. This is going to stay, it's going back in the closet. This is going to go to family because these are the linens that Aunt Lil hand painted with the Christmas ornaments that used to be on our table at Christmas. So that's got to stay in the family. This may be sold because maybe there's more than linens in there. Maybe there's some valuable china that you found. So we just, by categorizing and saying, well, let me just help you with one thing, you will often see that that gives them the confidence and the encouragement to move to the next stage.
I love that. Yes. And I am dealing with that remotely with my own parents who are in Manitoba, Gay. So, and just, you know, the one thing that I've said is, you know, my sister's there, I'm here. Let's start looking at the stuff that you really want to make sure that we keep. And let's look at some of the stuff that, and you spoke to that in your presentation as well, Gay, is what do you want to make sure that we have, and what are the things that are just, they're in the way and they're, you know, they're tripping hazard or what that looks
That's
like.
right.
So
that you can easily live, they're not bringing you any joy.
Yeah.
They paid for themselves many years ago. I don't know how many times I said in the last month, that owes me nothing. I have gotten so much pleasure and use out of that I need to let it go. And so that kind of thinking. You just said something that twigged something else. It will come back and I'll say it later when it comes back.
But you mentioned that in the presentation and it clued with me, like, you know, having that conversation with my parents saying, you know, what means the most to you that you don't want my sister or I to go without, and how can we start getting these things and moving them outside of your house?
Oh, and related to that, Trina and everyone else, is if we don't make those decisions now, when we're well and when we're capable of making them, believe me, someone will come along and make those decisions for you. Our stuff will outlive us. And sometimes people overnight end up in a situation where they're in the hospital or they're unable to come home, and it's someone else deciding what matters. This is your opportunity to decide what matters. That's really critical. It almost sounds like a bit of a threat or a little bit of a, but it's the absolute truth. And why not make the decisions when we're here together, when we have the opportunity? This is your stuff. You have the right to make decisions about what happens to it.
And it's the same about coming into retirement as well. I always encourage prospective residents, come and visit us now when it's a choice and you're not in crisis, because it will be such a different experience coming in and experiencing what a residence has to offer. So I really like that. Yeah.
Take control. Yeah.
I also had somebody had a statement in here. Someone suggested I take photos of the things that I need to part with. I am doing this and it is such a big relief. Have you heard of that as well,
Yes.
Gay?
Yes, very much. There's a number of great little tricks around the things you don't want to part with. So yes, exactly. If you have, let's say, a set of dishes, this is very typical too. Though these were my grandmother's dishes. Do you use them? No, I haven't used them. They take up a lot of space, and some of them are broken, some of them are damaged. They're really not in regular use. Well, why don't you have a beautiful picture there of grandma? Why don't you take that saucer and cup, and I see you have her glasses, and make a beautiful shadow box out of them. Now that can hang on a wall. So rather than having an entire cabinet full of these dishes that no one is using, it's a wonderful thing to do. So yes, take pictures of the things and then let them go. You still have them. If you have, like I do, boxes and boxes and boxes of slides from the 1980s, you can also get those now digital. You can take them to a place like Costco, or there's many other local providers in your community that will be able to turn those into a digital product for you to keep, and as a CD or as on a stick. Well, I can tell you that's a ton of room that you're clearing up. So another thing we suggest, it's a sort of a move tip, that if you love the way one wall of pictures looks in your house, or the way that you have placed the stuff in your kitchen, or the way that your beach motif was reflected in your bathroom, take pictures of it. So when you're moving, you can recreate that. We do that very often for our clients, is we try to recreate the same vibe or the same wall unit or the same, often for practical purposes, where things are under the sink, for example. We try to keep them exactly as they were in the old home.
Excellent. Excellent. So at this point in time, it doesn't look like there's any other questions in the chat. So unless somebody types something very quickly, I just want to thank our participants in both BC and Ontario. Thank you so much for joining us today. Natasha, thanks for keeping us on track. And Gay, thank you so much for an amazing presentation. Really, really appreciate, the insight that you've given us. I know it's given us a lot to think about, and just truly appreciate the time that you've spent with us. For participants on the call, we will be following up with a recording of our presentation today, as well as the deck. We'll make sure to include that link that Gay shared with us today as well. And again, I just think it's been just a wonderful afternoon and morning for our BC folks. So thank you once again, Gay. Great job. Thank you, everyone.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone who joined us.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.